Hello, hello. Today we are cuddling up with our coffee because we are talking about 6 things that you can do to financially prepare for 2024. Or rather, 6 things I am doing to make sure that my money is right and I'm clear about what I have going into the new year. So hello everyone, I am Danielle and this is First Gen Money. We talk about all things money, lifestyle, mental health from a first gen perspective, from my perspective. And yeah, today's video is kind of a end of the year, what I think through every year when it comes to my personal finance. Because like with my personal goals, I also like to closely follow my financial goals. That's just an interest of mine. Especially as somebody who is thinking about how financial independence, retire early looks like after having gone through a layoff and not investing the way that I had expected in 2023. Let's walk through what I'm doing to get ahead of 2024 to start off and prepare for the new year financially. So the first thing, and I think this is part of, this is like the overarching thing that you do, right? Is having a money date with yourself. And if you have a partner, having a money date with your partner. So 2 money dates, right? So I am recently married. I have a partner. So I'm gonna have 2 money dates. One with myself to explore, and I'll tell you what we'll be exploring during this money date, to explore what this, what these financial questions, what all of this looks like for me personally. And then I'm going to have it with my partner just so we can talk about our couple goals, our couple financial goals, and really get an idea of like what's on his mind as well. We have a calendar invite for Friday. We're gonna be going and having a money date. It's actually a 2024 conversation is what it's listed as in our calendar invite. And this is when we're done doing our individual ones, right? So we're gonna talk through our rich life. At this point, you've probably heard of Ramit Sethi's, I forget what his Netflix special is, but he just had a whole series on Netflix where he talks about your rich life. And that's really just like getting specific about what your ideal situation is, right? You know, we say we wanna be financially independent so we can do whatever we want, whenever we want it, but like, what does that mean? What does that look like in practice? So we're gonna be sharing what I determined my rich life is, what Ari determined his rich life is, and then what our couple rich life looks like. So just to give you kind of an example of like, I haven't really done my money date yet, but what I'm thinking in terms of what my rich life looks like in 2024, it's being able to have our own apartment again, right? Moving out, living ideally somewhere in a city. Doesn't need to be Manhattan. It probably won't be Manhattan. It definitely won't be Brooklyn, but like going back to a city because the suburbs just, I'm not vibing with it right now. And so my rich life looks like moving out to our own apartment in a city, a place where I probably can see myself living for the next 2 years. Another thing that actually came up yesterday when I was at Trader Joe's was I want to be able to just like be okay putting Ari's Trader Joe's meat on the cart and not be like wincing when I see the $20 per steak that we're buying. And it's not, you know, I think that's a lot of the emotional sides of money that requires tackling, but that's just like an example of what I'm envisioning. And it's so basic, right? Like, I just don't want to have like a negative reaction when I'm like, why am I paying for this meat that I don't even eat? And we're in a position to be okay, like putting that in there, right? But it's establishing and kind of getting clear about what your rich life is and coming to that money date if you have a partner with an idea of what that looks like for you. If you're doing your own money date, sitting down and thinking, what does it look like for me? Another thing we're gonna be talking about during this money date and something that you should also explore on your own is what do you wanna do with money this coming year, right? What do you want your goals money related to be? And also reflection on 2023, right? So look at the last year and think about what went well with money, what didn't, what were some room for improvements for next year, because that'll help you understand like maybe where to think through some goals for the new year. I also recommend here, if you did have money goals for 2023 and you didn't accomplish them, find out why, right? In that money date with yourself, ask yourself, why didn't I reach this goal? For example, we had moved back to the suburbs, back to Ari's mom's basement, because we wanted to buy a house at the end of the year, right? Before I got laid off, right? Our understanding was we are going to move back so we can find a house around here and buy it. Then I got laid off and then things shifted. But I think it was also an opportunity for me to realize I don't know if I'm ready to buy a house in the suburbs just yet. So that's something that didn't get accomplished in 2023, buying a house, but I also think it helped me understand why I'm probably not ready, why we're probably not ready to buy a house in 2023. So take a look back at your money goals and see what happened. Obviously, a big part of that was I was laid off, but just kind of ask yourself what happened. Another thing we're going to be walking through in our joint meeting together as a couple, our money date, is going through our goals for the new year and walking through those things that didn't work and did work. And then coming up with our couple goals. So we're each coming to the table with suggested couple goals. What do I think we should do as a couple? And then Ari will also bring some of what he thinks we should be doing as a couple. We are also trying something new in terms of tracking our spending. We have been using my spending tracker that I created, and that is great. I love that tracker. I created it because I think you should track your money manually for a good amount of time. But I think right now we're at the stage of we don't need to be tracking it manually ourselves anymore. We can do it through an app. So we just signed up for this app called Copilot, and I think we're gonna just go through it and see how it works. We've added our accounts, so just getting comfortable with that and making sure that my spreadsheet is just the one that we go for, like the big overview. So understanding your money systems is also something you wanna think through in your money date. So that is kind of like what you do in a money date. You sit through it, you talk about it, but also I say this is one that is overarching because it literally, your money date could just be you sitting through and going through the next 5 things that I list on here, right? It's literally setting time aside to have this money conversation with yourself. You have to make it fun. Have your cup of coffee, have a journal, like really make it an event. Money date is really the overarching one. These next tips are things that you could do in a money date, hypothetically. Number 2 is, what are you spending your money on? Again, this goes back to like tracking your spending, but most importantly, what are some recurring bills that you have listed out? List out those recurring bills, list out some things that you're like, okay, this happens every month. I know I pay Peloton every month. I know I pay for my solid core every month. List that out, what it is, and then the total. And what this does is it helps you visualize like, okay, what is my minimum monthly spend, right? Like maybe not all those things are a necessity. Obviously, I just named 2 things that I spend money on that are not necessities. Technically, a Peloton membership and my solid core membership are not necessities, but they're things that I commit to on a monthly basis because they enrich my life. When you list down all the bills that you have, you can realize like, okay, is this enriching my life? Or actually have I been not enjoying going to the fitness classes, and so maybe I can cut down on it. It helps you visualize where your money is actually going, especially when you might not have the time at the end of the year to like go retroactively looking at your last 3 months of expenses. Number 3 is logging into all of your accounts. Logging into all of your accounts and seeing how much money you have in all those accounts. So I like to break it down by, you know, the banks, the checking accounts, the savings accounts that you might have. Then your investment accounts, if you like have any investment accounts, log into those, make sure you know your login and your passwords. You might have to reset it if it's been a while that you haven't logged in. I, for some reason, always forget my password to one of my investment brokerage accounts. And so I had to reset it when I did this for myself. So log into those accounts. Maybe you use a tool like Personal Capital or Copilot, like I just signed up, and you want to log in to just like see the overview of your net worth, see how like you're doing as a whole. So make sure you can access those accounts, log in, and make a mental note of how much you have in those accounts. For those of us who are unemployed, I think the making sure you are aware of how much you have in that account is important. It's an important step. I know sometimes there's like a fear of like logging into the bank account because you know you don't have much and you're just like, I don't want to think about it. But it's important to make sure that we log into all of our accounts. And I forgot to say, but yes, this includes your credit card accounts as well. It's another one where I'm like, I have a few credit cards and I forget like what the passwords are. So like just make sure you remember which credit cards you have, list them out, and log in. Make sure you can still access them because that's important. It's also an important step in seeing how much money you have in there, because you can be like, oh, wait a second. I have like $10,000 that I've spent in here, but I've never used this card. Oh my gosh, fraud, whatever. Number 4, we're still on this reviewing your accounts, but this time I want you to review the performance. What does this mean? If you have investment accounts, how'd you do last year? Are you up? Are you down? Don't do anything with it. I just want you to be aware of how those accounts look. I make sure that, and I'm bad at this, but I try not to log into my accounts that frequently, my investment accounts, because I don't want to be like feeling emotionally connected to that money that I have there, in the sense that if it's down, I'm like, oh, my investment accounts are doing horribly, and then I feel like some type of way. So I try to like not go super frequently. I probably like log in once a month, which still is probably very frequently, but I think it's best to like understand performance on a longer term scale, right? And I know 1 year isn't that long term, but just look at the last year. How'd you do in the last year? And then what I do also like to look is like, what's my all-time performance? It just helps me understand that in the long run, it looks pretty good. So understanding your performance. When I say this in terms of your bank accounts, like your checking account or your savings, I'm thinking about, okay, if your savings account is not getting you any interest, then that's important to like take a note of, right? I use high yield savings accounts because I get more money for the money that I'm just having sit here in this bank account, right? So check that performance in your savings account, see how much money you've made just by having your money sit there. If it's been a penny, then you're probably not using a high yield savings account and you might want to make a shift. Number 5, if you are somebody who has left a job or been laid off in the last year, then are there accounts floating somewhere in the world that you need to claim and roll over? What do I mean by this? If you had a 401k with your former employer who you left, who you got laid off from, then it might be time to roll that into an account that you are actively like gonna go in and check, right? So if they had a 401k with a brokerage that you're not familiar with, that's like a 401k brokerage. I think one of the ones that my 2 employers ago had was one that I hadn't heard of. I'm like, what is this account? You know, but it was a popular one for like companies to open 401ks for their employees. I didn't want to like have another place to log in, so I transferred that, or rolled it over is the actual term, into my Vanguard. And so now when I go to Vanguard, I not only see my Roth IRA, but I see my rolled over IRA. And that just means that I can see all of my accounts in one place. I don't have to think about opening or like logging into another account to look at this old 401k. Is there something that you need to roll over? Something that I used when I rolled over that 401k was Capitalize. They make it easier to do, but you can do this yourself as well. I actually rolled over my HSA on my own. I don't know if Capitalize does it or if they're just 401k, but it was super easy. Again, my former employer was using some random HSA company, and I was like, I don't like the investment options I have here, so I'm gonna roll this over to Fidelity. And so I rolled it over to Fidelity, and it was super easy to do. I didn't really have to think much about it. So rolling things over is not that complicated. Figure out which accounts you need to roll over and see if there are tools like Capitalize that can make it easier. Not sponsored, but I have used that tool. So I think it's helpful if you're just like overwhelmed by the idea of having to roll something over yourself. Number 6, this one is gonna have its own video. I have made a video of how to like tackle paying off your debt, and I'll add that here, but reviewing your debt. So we opened our credit card accounts, we logged in, making sure we could log in, but this step is a little bit more specific, right? So yes, you opened up your credit cards, you saw like how much you have and how much you owe, what your balance is, but taking that a step further is really understanding what this debt is, right? You have your balance, but what is your minimum payment? And when is that minimum payment due? And then asking yourself, am I in the position to set up an automatic minimum payment to come out of my checking account? If yes, set that automatic payment. And the reason why I say set that automatic payment is because I have done this before where I totally forget that I have a credit card, Target, that I have a credit card that exists that I use to get the 5% off whenever I shop at Target. And then I'm like, oh, I forgot I used that credit card. Oh, I'm late to paying it. And that hurts your credit. That hurts your credit score. So to avoid that, I've now set up automatic payments for the minimum, But you always want to try to pay more than the minimum. And so that's why I say just set up the automatic payments for the minimum and then remind yourself by setting a calendar reminder to go on and pay more than the minimum. So setting that calendar reminder so you don't miss a payment is really an important step that you should take, because part of your credit score, a big chunk of like how it's calculated is your payment history. Are you always on time? Have you been making regular payments? Have you missed payments? Like that'll ding your credit score. So if you're able to set up the automatic payments for your minimum. The second piece to this credit card review your debt step is just getting clear on how many points you have. If you have one of those credit cards that like give you travel points or miles, then just like understand what you have available. You might be surprised, or you're maybe like me and you're like, no, I always know how many points I have because I use that to cover my travel expenses and I plan around that. So just like be aware of which cards are giving you what for how you spend on those cards. So that's kind of the last piece there. And that is what I'm doing to financially prepare for the new year. Again, I said these are 6 different things, but I honestly feel like there are 5 different things that you can do all in a money date with yourself, with your partner. So I hope it was helpful. If you did enjoy this video, please subscribe, like it, share it with somebody, share it with your partner if you have a partner, so you can do this together. So you can join Ari and I as we have our money date. Happy holidays. I will see you all next week. Bye.